I'm Kimberly from Fat Quarter Shop Floss Tube, and on today's live stream, I'm going to show you a really awesome finishing, and it's going to be a spool finishing, and I think you're going to love it. So let's just kind of jump right in. I'm going to show you what I did, and hopefully you can make this too. So we took the Hometown Neighborhood from Lori Holt. At the bottom of all of her charts, there's going to be a total of 12 of them. There is stitching across, and we stitched that. Now we left off the border. That's this little like bumpy border. We just did this cross stitch across. Now one thing I wanted to tell you is you could make it longer. Just keep going if you want to make it longer. So this is stitched on 25 count farmhouse fabric by Lori Holt. Now to finish this, you need some type of interfacing. We tried a couple of different ones, and the Pelon Ultralight worked best. And you will need a fabric to go behind it, and you could just use your stash. I'm using the Haberdashery Mercantile Roly-Poly. So you just need a scrap of fabric. And then as far as the spools, we sell these spools at Fat Quarter Shop in sets of 6. So you can either get a wooden spool with burgundy or wooden spool with green thread. They come in sets of 6, and they're a really good price. You will need, like a rotary cutter like normal. You'll need some type of marking pen, some type of point turner. This is the Clover point turner. And then we used Bowen applique pins, and I'll show you that at the end. That's to secure this down. Now you also will need some finishing tape. That will be for the very last step, and stitch witchery. And if you don't want to use stitch witchery, you could also stitch by hand. Totally up to you. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to move everything out of the way, and I'm going to take one of these, and we're going to start. I'm just going to pull all of the thread off. So you find the tail end, and you just pull it. Like, I'm just going to take it. Just pull it off. Like you could just, now you don't want to, nick into the wood because the wood is really pretty. So it'll just come off. And the only way we were able to find the spools was with thread on them. So just take the thread off. And the diameter of this spindle from here to here is 1.875. So if you're not using this one, you'll need to measure, and you can measure with a measuring tape. So this from here to here is 1.875. So when you're making your band, you have to be careful that it's under that. Like if you make it over 2 inches or something, it's not going to fit right, and it's going to be clunky. Ask us how we know. And I do want to give a huge shout out to Denise for coming up with this, because this is totally awesome. So the first thing we're going to do is we've got our thread off. We're going to take our piece. And this is, like I said, farmhouse 25 count. And I'm just going to kind of cut right here so I can save the bottom part for the next one. Because I'm going to stitch all of these and then do 12 different sets. So then I'm going to buy 2 sets of the 6. So from here, you're going to take your interfacing. Now your interfacing is going to, if you're not familiar with interfacing, it's going to give it some oomph. And if you don't have it, it's going to just drag. If your interfacing is too thick, it's going to be like stiff. So you want whatever interfacing you get, I would suggest getting something light weight. And then from here, I want my interfacing to be smaller than my piece so that I don't accidentally get anything on my ironing table. Ask me how I know that. Okay, so with the interfacing, we're using PLF 36. When you touch it, one side is going to be smooth and one side is going to be bumpy. If you touch your iron to the bumpy side, you're going to mess up your iron. I did it last week. That's how I know. So you want to put your bumpy side down. I've already ironed my piece, So it's already nice and flat. So before you put your interfacing, you're gonna want this to be nice and flat. And you just wanna make sure you're covering it. So I'm gonna take an iron with steam and I'm just gonna press it over and over until it adheres. Now right here, this is a yarn tree pressing cloth. And what that does, it just makes sure if there's anything dirty on your iron, your mat, it's not going to get on your cross stitch piece. So just go nice and slow from one side to the other. You can use steam. And I just think if you just go like a little bit slower like this, you're going to get a better result. You need to make sure it adheres. That's kind of the biggest thing, is that it's not loose. So if you go too fast, then it might not adhere all the way. Okay, so then I'm going to look at it and see it's adhered. You can see there's no bumpy bumps. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that dry and I'm going to do it one more time. I always feel like it needs to be extra secure, so just, you want to make sure it's not coming off. So from here, you just want to kind of make sure, over here, it doesn't matter because we're going to cut that off, but you just want to make sure it's nice and secure. Okay, so from here, like we were like I was talking about, you need this to fit in here. So like I said, from here to here is 1.875. So that's like the spindle. So we need our piece to be about 1 3/4 or so. So if you look at your piece, and yes, we did search high and low to find this exact spool to fit this exact piece. This was definitely a quest to find these spools. So if you go from here to here, that's 1 1/4. If I add 1/4 inch to the top, 1/4 inch to the bottom, that's 1 3/4. That's perfect. So I'm going to use a friction pin because it's going to disappear with heat later. And if you stitched nice and pretty, it's straight. So thankfully Denise stitched straight. And I'm going to mark it with a friction pin on the long sides first. And it doesn't have to be exact. I'm just doing 1/4 inch away. And then measure and it's between 1 3/4 and 1 7/8. And if your stitching isn't straight, you would want to kind of mess with it to get it straight. So you would kind of like, I don't want to do that because I don't want to pull my, but you definitely need to pull it and wiggle it until it's straight. And then on the end, you can decide how much you want. I'm going to do 3/8 of an inch. That's from the pin. You can do more, you can do less, you can do, this is kind of what 3/8 looks like. So from here, what I want to do is take a piece from the jelly roll, any piece. So let me see what I think matches. So on here, you can see we matched like an aqua with the aqua, and this is the design that's on the second part, the second series in the Hometown Neighborhood series. This is the first part. So I'm going to pick this navy. And Jelly rolls make a mess, so get that out of the way. Oops, sorry. Jelly roll went on a run. So obviously you don't need the full strip. So I'm going to cut it in half. Then what I'm going to do is trim a 1/4 inch away from all 4 sides. But make sure your lines are correct before you do that, because you're going to be using this as what you sew around. So first you'll take this and so when I cut there and then I go here a 1/4 inch away, I want to line up here and here. And you know, when you go to quilt retreats and stuff, sometimes, you know, most of the time you take a gift for a friend. This would be such a great thing to take. Of course, it would take a lot of time, but these would make such great gifts. And they're quick and easy to stitch. Like you could probably stitch this in an hour or 2. So just slow and steady, a 1/4 inch away. And like I said, you're just making sure everything stays straight. Then I'm going to take my jelly roll piece. Just going to check one thing. Okay, I don't think I cut. I think I need to cut a little bit. I think I cut a little too wide right there. Yeah, I didn't cut correctly there. I just cut it a little. I could tell. Okay, so I'm going to put this here. I'm going to put this here. I'm going to cut this to match exactly. You don't have to do that, but because I use a 1/4 inch with a guide, I get better results doing that. And then I'm going to take some Wonder Clips. And you don't have to cut this down. You could cut it down after. I just prefer to do that. Okay, one thing I'm going to do to make it easy for you is we're going to be using a 1/4 inch stitch all the way around. So I'm going to use a pin and a ruler, and this is a 1/4 inch here and here. And then let's see. There we go. So basically this is showing me where I need to pivot. Now if you're a beginner sewer, I'm going to also show you another trick. I'm going to move this and then I'll bring it back. Okay, if you don't have a 1/4 inch foot, take a ruler, take the 1/4 inch line and draw your line. This will all go away with heat later. Just make sure if you're using a marking pen, don't use a pencil or something that's going to show through to the front. So if it was just me at home sewing, I would just draw these little divots. But if you're a beginner and you don't have a 1/4 inch foot, I've drawn that line for you. So all you have to do is stitch all the way around. Now you need to leave a 4 to 5 inch opening. And I'll talk about your stitch length and all of that in a second. I'm going to put some wonder clips on here. I'm not going to use pins because I don't want holes in my cross stitch. Okay, to make this easy so you don't forget, I'm going to make that my opening. So I'm going to stitch with like a 2.0 stitch length. I'm going to start stitching here. I'm going to stitch, back stitch, follow the line. With my needle down, I'm going to pivot, needle down, pivot, needle down, pivot, pivot, here, back stitch. So that's what you're going to do. I'm going to be using a 1/4 inch foot, but if you don't have it, you can just follow your lines and just make sure that, you know, right sides together. So your piece should be right sides together with your fabric so that you can flip this fabric. If your fabric is the wrong way, your little thing on the back will be upside down. And I'm just using a cream thread, RFL Color 2000. You can use whatever thread you want. I would just make sure it matches and does not show through to the front. So like I said, take a couple stitches, back stitch, and the more accurate you are right at that turn, the nicer your corners will be. Back stitch. So you can see it easier on this side you can see that easier where your opening is. What I'm going to do now is take some scissors and I'm going to cut the corners. And what you can do is cut a diagonal here. Don't cut through your stitches, so I'm going to do that on all 4 corners first. 2 of the corners will be hidden, so you wouldn't have to do it on all of them, but I'm going to just do it on all because I don't want to have to think about where. And if you want, you can even shave it down like that. And that just gets some of the bulk out when you flip it. You just have to have really sharp scissors and don't go through your stitches. And if you do go through your stitches, you'll just have to make some more stitches to hide it. Okay, then you're going to take this and you're going to flip this out, and you're just going to do, it's going to be kind of tight. Do one side at a time and just try to put the pressure on the quilting fabric instead of the cross stitch fabric so your stitches stay nice and pretty. And this is a clover point turner. You don't have to use this. You could use a chopstick if you had a chopstick at home. Do one side at a time, and then I'll make it pretty at the end. But see, when I'm flipping this, I'm taking, my finger is on the quilting side. So that's how it looks. Okay, now what I want is to look to make sure this is straight, and that's straight. That's really nice. I'm going to take the side that has the point, and I'm going to be really careful, and I'm going to just kind of try to get this corner out. And it's not going to be perfectly square, it's going to be more round. And just make sure you're not too forceful, that you don't go through the cross stitch fabric. Don't ask me how I know, because I can be kind of crazy with these. Okay, so see how it's kind of round? That's how it's going to be. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my iron, and I'm going to just iron it, and I'm going to kind of finagle it where I try to get it as flat. So on the front you don't see the back, on the back you don't see the front, and I'm just going to go around the edge very gently. And I'll put the cross stitch side down. So like I said, just make it as flat as you can. So you have this opening. Now, I think it would be really hard to stitch that. You could hand stitch that, but I think you're gonna see your stitches, and it's gonna be kind of hard because you're gonna be going from a cross stitch fabric to a cotton fabric. So I'm gonna use Stitch Witchery. I'm gonna tell you what this is first. Stitch Witchery is this little piece. You can get it, it's like a very, very thin piece of fusible webbing, and it's fusible on both sides. So I'm going to take a piece that will cover the opening. I'm going to just cut slightly smaller, and you have to be really careful with this stuff. It may seem like it's just like a little old thing. This thing is sticky. You want to get something on your kids' shirts to stick down. This is the magic. I'm telling you, I've used this a million times. Just keep it away from your iron. Keep it way over here on the side. So what I'm going to do here is, you can see this line still where that 1/4 inch is. I'm going to press it. And I'm going to get it nice and the way I want it before I get that Stitch Witchery over here. Trust me, I know. It is, it's like the magic product. You just have to be careful with it. So see, that's not exactly straight. I'm going to be kind of obnoxious here. I'm not going to cover the stitches. I'm just going to kind of get this down the way I want it. So you just want to get it as straight as you can. Put the Stitch Witchery in there, making sure it is not right on the edge. So you've got to get it about 1/8 away from the edge. But it's also got to be close enough to the edge to where it's going to close. I think it's a little too long, so I'm going to cut off a little bit. And stitch witchery can be like magic. So it looks great. I'm gonna just put the edge on the edge so it stays, and then I'll flip it over. Flip it gently and press. And it's nice, and I just want it from the front to be straight. So now we're gonna take this and we're gonna adhere it to our spool. So now I'm gonna take the spool, put it on its side, and I'm gonna take some stitchery tape, which is basically sticky tape on both sides. And I wanna cut it, but I don't want it, the spool's chasing. I don't want it to go all the way to the top and the bottom. I want it to go slightly below. So that's a really good spot right there. If you go too far up or too far down, that stickiness might show through. Then you take your tape off, which is always the hardest part. And you've got sticky on the wood and sticky on the outside. Then you're gonna take your least pretty side, doesn't really matter, and you're gonna put it right here and center it, and just use heat from your fingers and really get it secure. Okay, roll it around. When you get to that end, it's nice and secure. I'm gonna take 2 itty bitty applique pins. You could use pins you have at home. What I would say is I'm trying to use pins that don't have a pin head so you don't see it, so you can see that you can't see that. I'm gonna put this pin right here on the quilting side, right here, only on the quilting fabric. Poke it through to what's adhered, and then it's going to kind of poke through. You could go, well, I don't really want to see that, so I'll go down. You want to hide it in between the piece. And then you go to the other side. Pull it taut. Put this needle only in your quilting fabric, which this is where I didn't have it exactly even. Put it in that quilting fabric. That's where my stitch witchery is, and just go right there and try to hide it in between. And then there you go. Now from here, you could have it drape like this, and you could put a little pin and have it drape like that. Or you could just put one pin and poke it here. You want to pull it tighter though. So from here, I'm just going to kind of poke it in that blue fabric and just go down. And you can do both sides if you want. Of course, you can let it drape. You can do however you want it to look. And so this is how it would look. Not draped, not pinned. This is how it looks pinned. And again, with this pattern, what I will tell you is this is the Hometown Neighborhood Tea House. The next one is, and that's this one right here. If you want it to be super long, you could just make it really, really long and let it drape all over your table. This is going to be the second colorway that comes out with Hometown Neighborhood 2. So you can pick up the spools at Fat Quarter Shop. Again, they're called wooden spools, set of 6. You can get the Hometown Neighborhood pattern at Fat Quarter Shop. It's designed by Holt, and you can stitch this. Hopefully you like this giveaway. We are going to give away some of these spool sets, and basically you're going to get a set of 6 spools, a haberdashery roly-poly, and a pattern to 3 winners. So this is what you'll get. You have until Tuesday, March 5th to enter. We will pick winners March 6th and announce them on the YouTube community tab. Make sure you're subscribed so you see that. And what I would love to know from you guys is, what did you think of this finishing? And do you have any other finishing tutorials you would like us to do? Because we would love to add those to our videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.